Hey gang, I am Joe Edelman and welcome to The Last Frame Live. Tonight, we've got some news, just a little, some announcements, a shot breakdown, kind of a cool one tonight, a little bit different, and of course, the photography Q&A. So, you know the drill. Start typing. I'll do my best to answer all of your questions in the next 60 minutes. And hey, if you're here live, do me a solid, hit that thumbs up below the video. The more thumbs up, the more YouTube recommends the show to other photographers. And of course, in the chat, let me know you're here. Leave me a little note. Let me know who you are, where you're watching from. Already, who do we got here? We got, let's see, we got Renee in Switzerland. We got Lynn in New York, Ron down under from Thursday, David out in San Diego. We got S. Judd, Stan from Las Vegas, Alan in Denmark, Calvin's here from up in Maine, Joe also in Australia, Joe in California, Soggy, California. Hey, be careful what you wish for, you know? Yeah, you Californians are having a rough go of it, man. Between first it was a drought, and now you got more water than you know what to do with, right? Danny in Vegas, Juan's here in New York, Daniel up north of Boston. Let's see, Robert Redman over in the UK. Awesome. All of you, you're part of a growing global community of photographers in over 100 countries that are tuning in to watch The Last Frame on a weekly basis. And hey, listen, if you're watching the replay, no worries. Please drop a comment below the video. Let me know you were here. That way I can check you off and you're not considered absent, all right? And for all of that, I'm going to work really hard to help you with your photography tonight. And as I mentioned, don't forget that thumbs up, right? Or, of course, you can share the link, that share button down there. Go ahead and click that, share it out to your photography friends because, like, I know you got one or two, right? Even if you can't stand them a little bit and they're your competition, come on, be a good guy or a good lady. Let them know. You can go ahead and hit that share button or share that link that I just dropped in the chat. It's lastframe.live. Facebook, Twitter, they're the fastest way to get the word out during the show. All right, so a couple quick teaching updates here. Let me get that out of my way. And I'm going to bring my website up on the screen here. Click on the education button. And a few things. So actually, kind of excited. Next week, I'm going to be doing a presentation virtually for a camera club in England, in the UK, which I actually have family in the UK, so that's going to be kind of fun. But next, I think it's Tuesday, the 11th, best practices of, I should know what day of the week it is. That's really bad. Is that Tuesday or is that Thursday? Okay, when is the 11th here? My gosh, it's Tuesday. So next Tuesday, best practices of digital file management for photographers. So listen, bottom line, and I'm not going to give you a hard sell, but I'm going to give you a hard sell because this is actually important stuff. And it boggles my mind how many photographers just ignore this situation. So look, if you're one of those photographers that's got files all over the place, if you're one of those photographers that anytime you want to find a file, it's like a major project, it's $10. I can solve your problem. Now look, if your system's that bad, you're going to have a little work to do, but I'm going to help you figure out what is the right system, the right way. And I'll tell you right now, I've been shooting digital full-time for, this is 2023, 23 years now. I can find any image that I have shot in the last 23 years in less than 3 minutes. That's no bull. Super, super simple, super easy. All it takes are some good habits, but also a good filing structure. So that's what that class is all about. In fact, I'll share that link in the chat. So just in case you weren't here last week or you didn't check in, okay, let's try that again. Wrong button. I did let everybody know that unfortunately, I've been talking about Texas school for so long, I'm not going to be at Texas school this year. Just is what it is. Sometimes business decisions have to be made. But listen, if there's any way that you can get a week off of work, so that's what is it, April 23rd through the 28th, and make your way down to Dallas, Texas, I will tell you that it is one of the greatest programs you'll come across. And it's only $750 for the whole week. And what makes it really unique, you spend 5 days working with one instructor. So I would encourage you, check that out if you can. Also excited to announce that June 1st and June 2nd, so that's a Thursday evening, June 1st, and Friday, probably afternoon. I don't know the exact time yet, but of course I'll keep you informed. On June 2nd, I'm going to be back in Austin, Texas. I will be the keynote speaker on Thursday evening the 1st for Precision Cameras Expo that they do every year. I've talked at that before. It's an awesome event. And I will be doing a live hands-on workshop and demo the next day, shooting my cool, crazy fashion portraiture that we do. So again, that's June 1st, June 2nd. That information will get posted up on the website as soon as everything's added to their site. So probably by next week, I'll be able to share actual links for you for signups and all that kind of stuff. Because in both cases, the keynote and the keynote, I don't know if that's free. Probably that one's probably free, I'm guessing, I hope. The workshop, I don't know if there's a cost behind that or not, but by next week I'll let you know. Anyway, it goes, space is limited. They've got a nice big studio that also turns into a classroom, but it's still limited in size, okay? All right, so actually what I wanted to share with you tonight, so this is kind of random because you guys know that I don't talk a lot about gear, but just to bring you up to speed in case you haven't followed me for that long, or I don't know, maybe just haven't been paying attention. January of 2022, so a year and change ago, I dropped all of my sponsorships. For those of you that have been following, you've heard me explain that, listen, no bad feelings towards any manufacturer, any sponsor. I am blessed to have had the experiences that I had with all of them. But I also realized that with not only where the influencer mentality is going in our industry, and also where I'm going in terms of the education that I want to provide and the work that I want to do, it really no longer made sense for me to be working with these companies essentially as a salesperson. And just so you all understand, influencer, that's what an influencer is. They're a salesperson, okay? And I'm not talking trash. I don't mean it in a bad way, but look, when you get to this point where people start to hand you money and gear because you have a big following and all that kind of stuff, it's a little addictive, I'm not going to lie. Fortunately, I'm very proud of the fact that I only took sponsorships from companies who I still to this day recommend and use their gear. But I have turned down every sponsorship that has come along since, and I've turned down almost all sample pieces of gear that have come along since. And really kind of going at it from the philosophy of any company that I'm going to talk about as far as saying, hey, folks that are watching, you really ought to pay attention to this company or take a look at their gear. It's going to be a company that I am able to really familiarize myself with. In other words, not just look at their website, but get to know the people, number one, get to know their products. And I have to be of a mindset that I would spend money on those products. And what I'm also going to do anytime that I accept a piece of gear from a company to try it out or test it out, I want to share it with all of you kind of from start to finish, meaning my first impressions. And no, I'm not going to do unboxings. What a waste of time. Whoever thought that unboxings was a good idea? I know, sorry, I'm done with that. But really, but I want to kind of give you first impressions on the gear, what, I am interested in it for, where I think it might be useful to me. Then I'm going to test this stuff out. I'm going to put it to use, and I'm going to give you my honest feedback. And the companies that I am talking with, and there's only 2 right now, but the companies that I am talking with about things, I have made it very clear that, if they give me the gear, they understand that I am going to share my honest opinions, good, bad, and otherwise, which also means I'm not accepting any money for these reviews. So the stuff that I'm going to show you tonight actually comes from a company called Expo Imaging. Some of you may have heard of the Expo Disc, which has been around for quite a while and a really amazing piece of gear. I used one for quite a few years. But I had kind of a neat, nerdy experience at WPPI, and that is that just before WPPI, the gentleman who is the owner of the company reached out to me and said, hey, I'm going to be at WPPI. I would love to be able to spend a couple minutes with you, show you some new products that I've been working on. And so I was like, all right, sure. Because what I also learned is that the gentleman who was the owner of the company is also the guy that designed all this cool stuff. So that to me is just honestly really cool. It's always neat to get to talk to the people and get to know the people behind the products. You all know that I did a lot of work for Pro when they launched the Reflex, and getting to work with the people who actually dreamed this thing up and created it. It's neat. It's neat to really kind of understand their thought process through the gear, because one of the things I learned as an ambassador for Olympus, so often the way our industry, and when I say industry, I mean you, me, but when we're not in the know, the way we perceive gear and the way we perceive choices that companies are making and the way they design things and that is so wrong. But the blame, of course, is on those various manufacturers for also not communicating well, right? One of the best examples I could think of in terms of a miscommunication, and I talked about this recently. You all know I'm shooting with Sony now. So when I started looking into Sony cameras, when I walked away from my Olympus sponsorship and was thinking about coming back, I immediately was very frustrated by the fact that at the time, I believe there were 14 camera bodies on Sony's lineup at the time. So this was, almost a year and a half ago that I was looking at this. And so my first thing as a person who understands photography, but I'm looking at this camera lineup, it's like, why so many bodies? What the heck? And what do they all mean? What's the real difference? And am I literally going to have to go body by body and start comparing specs, which is not actually a great user experience. So what I found out in a very casual conversation that was like mind blown is that the Sony cameras that have the S in the letter, the S stands for sensitivity. And those are the cameras that tend to be a little bit more video-centric and also work at much higher ISOs. The cameras with R are the cameras that have higher resolution. And then the cameras that are just, the A7 whatever, a number, okay, but don't have an S or don't have an R, those are more of the hybrid cameras that are kind of a cross between the two. A simple communications piece that once you understand that, you have to think why in the world doesn't Sony talk about that more? Why do they not make that more obvious, right? And I have to assume they have a reason. That it's a big company. They're not stupid, right? They make great cameras, but why? So anyway, anytime I get to meet the people that actually are behind this stuff, for me, that's really cool. So I sat down with a gentleman by the name of Eric Sauer. He's the guy. He is the boss. He is the designer behind the new products that Expo Imaging has out under the Rogue brand name. In fact, I'll go ahead and I'll switch my browser over here, and I'm going to share their link because, again, if you have questions about this stuff, right now, today, I am not an expert on it. That's why I'm sharing the link. But I've got the pieces here in front of me. I'm going to show you some of them. And over the next couple of days and weeks, I'm going to put these to the test because these are pieces that I'm going to show you that I could definitely make use of on an ongoing basis, especially with my traveling and everything I do. These have a lot of potential to be able to save me weight and save me space when I'm traveling. And given the amount of equipment that I travel with, if you've ever seen me when I'm on the road, believe me, anything that's going to do that is like a godsend to me. So most of you are familiar with the Mag Mods, right? The Mag Grip that's got the 2 batteries on either side. And now, yes, Mag Mod has just updated with a newer version that uses more magnets and all that kind of stuff. But Rogue has come out with a version of speedlight modifiers and flash modifiers that work on magnets. They are designed primarily, I would say, for round heads. However, as you can see over on the right here, they have an adapter that is a speedlight adapter. So the speedlight adapter, this is on a Godox 8200, right? So it's similar to the MagMod slides over. I will tell you what I've learned already. It slides over a lot easier than the Magmod. You don't have to work quite as hard. So it gets a point for that, right? The actual design of these Rogue pieces is if you have a round head, so this is the Godox round head adapter for the 8200, it simply snaps right on, boom, and it's on there solid. It's not going anywhere, right? So now the way that Rogue handles the gels, which I also think is kind of cool, and I love the space saver of it. This is a Rogue gel. Notice it is flexible, unlike the Magmods. Now, I have nothing against the Magmod gels. I own a lot of them. In fact, did I bring them up? Oh, yeah. So, you know, the Magmod gels, by comparison, they take up a lot more space because they are thicker and heavier. And some people would argue, and it's a fair argument, more durable because, you know, these don't bend. They have a little flex to them, but they don't bend, okay? But definitely bigger, heavier, and you can see, like, to put them in a wallet, they take up quite a bit more space. So these Rogue gels are, I don't know if it's acetate or some other similar material, but they are more of a traditional gel material. So you can put them in a little wallet, you can stack them. A Rogue set of gels is 20 gels in a box. Let me get that to focus there. There you go. 20 gels in a box, okay? And then they also have a color correction set, which you see there. There's the color correction set. Let me get that on the screen, right? Okay. So basically the way it works, if you're working with a round head, we'll stick with that since that's going to be the quickest here, right? You drop on a filter holder. It's got a piece of clear plastic there. Lay the filter in that, and then drop in whatever modifier you want to work with. So if I want to work with like a color dome, drop the dome on top. That's it. It's good to go. If I want to put a grid on top, just drop the grid on, and it's there with the gel, right? If, by the way, I can just have it hold the filter too. It doesn't have to have another modifier on top. If I want to use a snoot, drop the snoot on, pull it out, good to go. So what is definitely nice about this setup, they are much smaller, much lighter, and they're also a little bit less expensive than the Magmods. So very excited to try them out. They have several different grids available with you know, different degrees of spread from the grids. And again, the gel's super lightweight, super easy to use, and it's all magnetized. It's all very, very quick. They also have a couple combination sets, that kind of stuff. So that's coming up. Very excited to check them out because I'm not going to lie, when I'm traveling and, you know, I'm dealing with about 150 pounds of gear going through airports, any weight that I can save is outstanding. So another thing that Rogue has released is this umbrella travel kit, okay? Daniel, the bare bulb, it will not work on the bare bulb, just like Magmod will not work on the bare bulb with an 8200. If I'm going to gel a bare bulb for some reason, I'm going to have to use, you know, a large sheet and arc it over the unit. But you're not going to find an easy solution for gelling a bare bulb, okay? And generally, if you're using a bare bulb, by the way, you are working with some kind of a modifier. So the other option, of course, is to gel the modifier that you're using, which I get it. That could be a big softbox, not as easy. But there are various ways to solve all that problem. But unfortunately, things like Magmod or these Rogue units are not going to handle the bare bulb situation, okay? So this umbrella travel kit, now I know a lot of you are like, oh, umbrella, okay, yeah, big deal. Hey, I love my umbrellas, right? So what makes this thing special? So first of all, it's packed size. So there's basically three pieces that are in the box. In fact, here, let me go back full frame. So there's its pack size, right? This is that kit, okay? Still has the tag on it. But there are a couple things that are really special here. So you've got two umbrellas that are in here. Let's go back to the browser really quick because I want to get the sizes right. It is a 32-inch translucent shoot-through, which you know that's like my favorite kind of umbrella, and also a 38-inch umbrella. But they have created something that is seriously cool for the 38-inch. But what makes these a little bit unique and special, let me switch back again. These umbrellas are super lightweight, but super durable. And that's because the rods in them are not metal. If you've used umbrellas, you know, over the course of history, you know that if you don't pay attention, or if your umbrella is cheaply made, you can bend these rods and then it doesn't fold up properly and it gets all misshapen. These are all fiberglass. So one, they're super lightweight, and two, they are flexible. So they're not going to wind up kinking on you like some umbrella rods can do. And that's with both of the umbrellas. But the real beauty of this set is this diffuser that's here. So I'm going to play a little video clip that they have on their website. This is super cool and super fast. So if you've ever had to put a diffusion sock on a bigger umbrella, so again, this is a 38-inch umbrella, so it's not massive, but it's also not small. You can see how, you know, they have like the diffusion sock here. Let me click on that one that goes over the front. I want you to watch this little video clip to see just how easy it is. Whoops, here I'm telling you to look at this. So there's the diffuser that goes over the front, okay? I'm going to play this little video clip without sound. I just want you to see how simple it is to put this diffusion panel on, okay? And here it goes. You basically slide it into the smaller hole of the diffuser and then pop the umbrella open. And as you pop the umbrella open, it's automatically going to grab and cover. So, you know, understand that for doing location work and that kind of stuff, super fast, super easy, super lightweight. Do they have the actual weight of the unit in here? They don't. I'll get you all that stuff when I give you my final feedback on it. Again, I've just had a chance to get this stuff unpacked and to really kind of touch it and feel it today and see what it's all about. So I thought, you know what? I'm coming on here tonight. I want to share it. I want to tell you about it. And then I will follow up and we'll go from there, right? So very excited about that kit. Very excited about the lesser weight compared to what I've been using and the idea of saving this weight, potentially being able to travel with the bigger umbrella as well. Because remember, I've got to keep each of those cases under 60 pounds. Otherwise, I'm paying, you know, overweight charges. So there's limitations there, right? And depending on the airline, you've got to be under 50 pounds. So I always work with 50 pounds just to play it safe. That's like my max on the cases, right? So one other piece of gear. So this one is not made by Rogue. It's actually made by the company Nissan, but it is being distributed by Rogue. So that's how I got a hold of one. And I had seen these, I think about a year ago. I had seen these light stands in person, got to handle one, was quite impressed with it. And before you panic, these are not for everybody. Right, let's be really, really clear, okay? I'm sure, you know, obviously the manufacturer would love me to tell you, oh, you should all run out and buy this. The overwhelming majority of you that are listening to me right now, especially here live, don't have a need for this. But let me explain to you what it is and explain why I'm using it, because down the road, you may have a situation where this type of an item is going to come in really, really handy. So these are light stands. In fact, let me grab one here. In fact, here, we'll go back to the browser first, right? So when I was talking about it not being inexpensive, I'm looking at the price and you weren't. So they're $199 for the taller one. This is 106 inches, right? Maximum height. They do have a shorter one, okay? But they are carbon fiber, which means they weigh nothing, right? So this 106-inch light stand weighs 1.8 pounds. Which is amazing. So, and again, it's all carbon fiber. So, upsides, downsides. I haven't put it to the test yet. For travel purposes, saves me weight. Realistically, if I switch over to these, which I honestly think I am going to switch over to these for traveling and teaching, I will go with the shorter one. They do have a shorter one that's also a little less expensive, right? Because I don't need quite as much height. you do have to be careful how much weight you put on these. Well, actually, that's not a fair statement. Gang, you have to be careful how much weight you put on any light stand. One of the biggest mistakes that I see new photographers making when they start buying lighting gear is they don't pay any attention to what the weight capacity is of a stand. It's like, oh, it's a light stand and I need a stand. Buy it, right? And then it turns out, well, the stand has a 4-pound capacity and their light's only 2.5 pounds. They're like, oh, cool, no sweat. And then they put a modifier on, right? And they go ahead and it's a big modifier that sits out the front. And even though that modifier doesn't weigh a ton, it's weight pushing over the front. So it's going to start to really bend on the stand. And the stand's potentially going to warp, not alone fall over with a little bit of wind, etc., right? So that's what you have to be aware of. These are designed, let me see what they're saying here for the recommended maximum weight. And again, this is the carbon fiber. So 6.6 pounds, more than enough to handle a Godox 8200 and umbrellas, etc. If I was going to work with a bigger softbox, I would want to be really careful. And regardless, if I'm working outdoors with these, you're definitely going to want to sandbag them or clip them to a camera bag, etc. Because I'm not kidding, they are super, super light. But they're basically, twist lock columns, really easy, really, really quick. They do have a 1/4-20 thread on the top, which also converts to a 5/8, which is really nice. It's not often you get the threads with an adapter built in on the light stand. So again, stay tuned. I will share more information about these as I get to dig into them. I see them, all of these, both the stands and the lighting modifiers and the gels, I see them as some really, really good alternatives. And look, I've used the Magmont stuff for a while. I really like the Magmont stuff. I have not, shall we say, graduated to Magmont 2, mainly because of the price. The price is, it's up there. So, again, I get it. Companies have to make money, but I'm always going to be that guy that says, hey, look, as an industry, we need to hold these manufacturers' feet to the fire, and we need to make them get better and smarter at the way they manufacture, because it's a balance. We need them and want them to create new and innovative gear for us. We want the advancements that really make our lives better, right? But at the same time, we want to pay, a fair price. And the stuff that we do is not cheap. I don't care if you're making money or not, right? It's not cheap. So anyway, more on that as we go. I see there are a couple questions. Keep those questions coming. I'm going to do my shop breakdown, and then I will go ahead and I will go through all of your questions and any others, okay? So this week's shop breakdown, I told you before, this one's a little bit different, right? So this is a very kind of commercialized picture. Now, this is an image that I did. So remember, we always start with why, right? This is an image that I actually shot for a modeling portfolio. Now, the reason why I wanted to explain that first is because that most of you, if you think about, modeling portfolio, are not going to think about a picture like this. So if you've read my bio, if you've followed along with me, you know that for about 15 years, I shot modeling portfolios as my primary source of income. And these were the kinds of images that I did. Not images that looked like they came off the cover of Vogue. Not images that looked like, a fashion model walking the runway in New York. I did a lot of very commercialized images because the majority of the models that I worked with were commercial models. I'm the first to raise my hand and say, you know what, I suck at fashion. Why is that? I'm not being modest. I'm being dead serious. It's because I like eyes. If I've got a beautiful woman in front of my camera, I want her looking at me. That's not what fashion is, right? Fashion, the woman is a prop. The idea is for the woman not to steal the attention from the clothing. Just saying, right? So with commercial models essentially are actresses. They portray a character. So a good portfolio is one that is going to show their ability to be these different characters, right? So this woman is a mom. She's not a teenager and very successful model, does a ton of work. She's done a ton of TV commercials, all that kind of stuff. So she came to me for an update on her portfolio. So we went all in on the commercial stuff. So we planned out shots that basically would look like images from ads, right? So that's the why behind the shot. Now, the hows and the setup. What I wanted to do here was, number one, I wanted it to be a character shot. In other words, something that was unusual, something that was different, and also something that would show a larger than life piece of personality, which is frequently what you see in television commercials and ads and advertising, etc. So the goal was big personality, which also then says to me, if we follow the thought path, that says to me that the lighting, the pose, all of it doesn't have to be super flattering. It's not a glamour shot. So the idea is we want this person to look a little bit real, have a little bit of a caricature feel to it. Part of the challenge is, and I should have actually queued up one of her actual headshots, part of the challenge is she's very pretty, she's very attractive. So I needed to give the image a little bit of a rougher feel. So my approach was to actually steal something that was very popular at the time from Joel Grimes, but to do it a little differently. What it was is the two lights on the side rim light, okay? But I didn't want it to be as clean. If you go back and you look at Joel Grimes images, when he does that double rim on each side, those lines are so clean and they're precision, right? I certainly didn't want it to be that clean. The whole idea with the rollers and the iron, she's a mom or a housewife and she's hurried and things are a little crazy. That was the vibe that we're going after. So let me show you how I created this image. The setup is really, and I'm going to break it down for you frame by frame, right? So here's the setup. And again, I kept my 5-foot circle in here just to give you all a good visual reference. I shot this with, at the time, a 70 to 200 millimeter lens. This was back in my Nikon days. It's a 70 to 200 millimeter. It was set at 75 millimeter focal length. So that's what we're at on this, this sample. The background was yellow to start. It's a bright canary yellow from Savage Universal. But you'll notice I have it closer than the 5-foot distance. So it's just behind her, right? So as we build this shot, we'll start with what I did with the background, and that was I don't want the gradient fall off, right? We're going to get rid of that gradient. But I did want a portion of that background behind her to be very kind of hot white. I'll go back and I'll point that out to you in the actual image. Let me pop it up here. You can see when you look between her arms, and even as it comes up over her shoulders, we get kind of this gradient fall off, right? So that's the starting point. From there, it's a matter of building in the rims. So the way that I did both of these rims is with soft boxes and no grids. So for those of you that are right away thinking, gosh, why didn't he use a grid? I'm going to show you in great detail. So relax, because the grid wouldn't have worked for this shot. I also didn't want to have to use like 20 lights to get this done. In a case of a modeling portfolio, these would be 8-hour shoots where we're doing anywhere from 9 to 14 different looks. So that means different outfits. For each outfit, we're changing the lighting, the setting, the outfit. We're making small changes to the hair and the makeup, right? That's a very busy day to get through. So part of the challenge in creating each of these shots is not deciding, hey, I'm going to go ahead and set up like 10 lights for this one because that's going to take way too long. And then, of course, it takes way too long to strike that set and set up for the next shot. So the goal was always to keep things as simple as possible. So it's also one of those scenarios where you do this enough, you learn a lot of dirty little tricks to get the job done, okay? So you'll notice that this softbox that I have just on the left rim so far, it's slightly ahead of her, but it's feathered backwards, right? And the reason for that is, let me turn it off again. I'm using it to even out the yellow background. Now you can see obviously it's evening out the yellow background up here on camera left. Camera right's darker, but we're gonna fix that by adding the second softbox set up similarly so that it is aimed, come in from the top. So you can see it's aimed backwards towards the background. So by doing this, I am evening out my background, getting my hot white glow. Now you know why I didn't use grids, right? Because this would not have worked with grids. The idea with the grid would be to try and keep the light off the background. But the fact is, I wanted the light on the background. So I'm doing this and feathering the light really, I don't want to say in the wrong direction, but in the opposite direction of the way you would normally think of feathering the light. I'm feathering it so that I'm actually benefiting my background, but keeping that kind of rough, if you look up here at her face, that rough rim lighting. I didn't want the thin precision line, which I frequently do, which you see Joel Grimes do. I wanted it to be a little rougher, a little bit more chaotic. And then the last piece is to add in, I'm going to back that up a little bit, it's to add in the key light, which was placed up above camera, and it is a round octabox. Notice how far away it is. Much further than you normally see me placing it. Part of the reason why it's so far away is that I wanted the light to be a little bit more stark than I normally do, and I wanted tiny catch lights. So big eyes, small catch lights. I wanted a lot of color in the eyes. So that light's backed up. So the key light is really almost kind of acting more like a fill light than it is a key light. Does that make sense, right? It's set up like a key light. And, you know, it's a little bit above her, okay? But that is the setup. So it's 4 lights that I'm working with, right? The key, the 2 rims, and then the background for the white glow. Certainly, you know, there's a couple of things that I could do differently, right? I could go ahead and let me unlock the background. You know, again, we could play with this like literally all day, all night. We could move that background back and it's still going to stay pretty even there. But let me go ahead and turn off the 2 soft boxes. One of the options would be to go ahead and pop up the power there. But what I lose is I lose that kind of hot white circle. Would that have been horrible? No, you could see actually that works just fine, right? I can go ahead and I can, you know, put my soft boxes in, I can put my key light in, and that also works. But I wanted that circle to be a little bit more defined, so that it just had a little bit more of, call it what you want. For me, it was creating a little bit of an extra vibe that was going on there by having that circle, right? So definitely something a little bit different than what you're used to seeing me do. And, you know, I would call this, for lack of a better phrase, you know, I would call it essentially kind of dirty light. And the reason I call it that is it's intentionally meant to not be super flattering and super smooth, right? It's meant to add some depth, give a little bit of pop to the image, but also to kind of help create a little bit of chaos to the image that kind of fits the mood and fits the character, right? And then obviously the shirt that she's wearing, along with the yellow and the orange tones, they all fill out the color palette. And then some random colors in bits with the clothing that's there. But you'll notice even the clothing that's on the ironing board, as well as the clothing that she is wearing, solid colors. Nothing that jumps out and screams at you. Nothing that pulls your attention and holds your attention. Not at all. Now, I always, when people post images in my Tog Knowledge community, and by the way, if you're not a member of the Tog Knowledge community, I don't know why you haven't at least tried it out yet. It's a 14-day free trial. Yeah, it costs you $75 a year. And trust me, you'll get your $75 worth, but don't take my word for it. Find out for yourself. It's a 14-day free trial. So you sign up, doesn't cost you a dime, right? But one of the things that I always have people say when they post an image for help and feedback is, if you could do it again, what would you do differently? So this is something that I could actually fix in post if I were to go back and rework this image. And honestly, so this image was from 2011 when I shot this. As I look at it now, 13 years later, 12 years later, I'm appalled that I missed this, appalled at myself that I missed this. And that is the string from the shirt that's hanging over. It's like a little hoodie that she's ironing. So it's hanging down the back, and that string is there. Should have been removed. And I know for a lot of you are saying, gosh, I didn't even notice that until we pointed it out. Right, but the fact is, now that you've seen it, you can't unsee it. It's there, and it's always going to be there. And it doesn't bring anything to the picture. And there's no context to it. It's just a close enough shade to the shirt that she's wearing that you can't tell if it's something sloppy going on with her shirt, or is it part of the shirt that she's ironing. But what kind of shirt is it that has a string? Like, what's going on, right? So if it's not adding anything to the shot, it shouldn't be there. It needs to go, okay? So that's this week's shot breakdown. All right, now, JP, the power cord is there, but the red piece is not the power cord, right? So let me just go back here, see what questions we had. Whoops, let me bring that back up and get to the end there. For Trung Lee, I have a question that we know about 3-point lighting. Is there any kind of lighting setup that is fancier? So, Trung, here's the challenge with that, right? I don't use 3-point lighting. I have, because unfortunately I learned on 3-point lighting and I was force-fed 3-point lighting. I don't use 3-point lighting now because I find it to be boring unless it's done with nuance. It could be a great example of a photographer whose work that I really admire, who essentially uses 3-point lighting, but a very modern version of 3-point lighting. His images have incredible depth, and I have mad respect because his lighting is extremely nuanced. And you can Google him, check him out on Facebook, even as Raphael Weigel. He's Canadian, absolutely awesome. And he lives with 3-point lighting setups, okay? So I would strongly encourage you, Trung, not to approach your lighting, and I mean strongly encourage you. Don't approach your lighting from the standpoint of, well, okay, I need to learn Rembrandt lighting, and I need to learn 3-point lighting, and I need to learn, 2-to-1 ratios and all this. Don't do that. Those are lighting arrangements that have been around for ever, meaning they're predictable. They're boring. There is nothing creative about them at all. At best, we could call them utilitarian, right? They're tools. You can get repeatable, predictable results with them. But here's the problem. And here's the problem with the way I learned lighting, which is part of why I am so against teaching lighting this way, and I will not. So you won't get me to actually talk about the actual, how do you do a 3-point lighting setup? I won't teach it. I simply will not teach it. And the reason is, when you learn those lighting setups, you are skipping an extremely valuable piece of the learning curve. So again, let me clarify. When I learned lighting as a teenager in the 1970s, I skipped that very valuable piece of the learning curve. Not that I was in a hurry and I was rushing. That's the way that I was taught. Back then, that's how everybody was taught. If you read a book on photography, that's how it was taught. The piece that you're skipping is you're learning place a light here, place a second light here, place a third light there. Or, place another one here, there, whatever. You're learning, this is where I place my lights. What you're not learning is you're not learning how to see light. I promise you, Trung, it is 1,000 times more valuable to you as a photographer, if you care about lighting, if you want to get to the point where you can master lighting, it is 1,000 times more valuable to you to learn how to see light. And honestly, the way you do that, it's very simple. You pick up a light and you turn it on and you start to move it around a subject. There is a video on my YouTube channel here. Let me grab this. I should have had it queued up. It's an older video of me, so you can have a really good laugh at me, because this was one of my very first ever YouTube videos, so I kind of hadn't figured out the whole YouTube thing yet. And not only did I look a whole lot different, but I was a little too passionate about this topic when I did the video. I'll own it, okay? But the information's great, okay? The video is called A Photography Lighting Lesson, Remember the Egg. That's the video. So Trung, I would encourage you, when we are done today, watch this video. I just dropped it in the chat for you there. That's where you start learning lighting, and that's how you start to learn lighting, and that's how you continue to learn lighting. They're straight up, man, there are no rules for where you have to place lights. None. Okay? If you learn a little bit of psychology about the way we perceive lighting in pictures, and you learn to see light, you can light even better than me. But if you're going to learn lighting arrangements that other people created and have been using for decades, or for that matter, hundreds of years, you're just going to create boring, predictable lighting. And there's no other way to describe it. So I'm not trying to be a jerk about it. I'm just keeping it real, right? It's how it is. So let's see here. Where we at? Juan had a question. How did you get the top of the image to be orange and the bottom only yellow? So here, let me go back. So part of that, Juan, is a little bit of the way the color shifted in Photoshop and the actual background. So here, let me show this. So down here at the bottom, where I have the white light that's overexposed, that keeps it really yellow, and then it fades. But as it gets darker towards the top, that's where it starts to go into an orange, because it's the yellow losing its intensity. Unfortunately, on the software, which here, if I switch back over to the software is not going to replicate that. It won't do the color shift. It does the lighting differential, right? So if I switch this to vertical, which I should have done because that's actually how I shot it, and let's go ahead and get the settings back to where I started. So here, let me go to this, there, and now go back to vertical. I should probably aim that a little bit lower. And then you can see how it's starting to fall off at the top. That's where the color shift happened. That's not going to happen in the software, unfortunately. But it really was that color shift. I can guarantee you, if you go out and you photograph a yellow space but have the exposure drop off, you'll see it start to go to orange. That's naturally what's going to happen. It's not going to go to pure orange, so it's not like the color changes, right? But it shifts. You get like a color shift, and that's where the orange picks up. Then, if you've ever seen how I do my initial processing, my camera raw processing of my images, if you see the settings that I use, which you can always attend those classes that I do, and I share those settings, but basically I'm pretty aggressive in my post-processing with vibrance, and then a little bit of saturation, but definitely with vibrance. So once you start to get that little bit of a shift, and then you hit it hard with vibrance, like up around 30, plus 30 vibrance, that's where it exaggerates that a little bit. So that's how you got it. It's kind of a, should we say, a byproduct, right? But nothing beyond that intentional. So Andrea, busy lately retouching a skincare campaign. Hey man, that's cool, very cool. You're still in California? You haven't gone back to Italy? Let me know. Let's see, what else do we got here? So I know there was conversation going on about, okay, so Daniel had asked, Does that adapter handle the bare bulb head from the 8200? So no. I mean, there's basically, at least to the best of my knowledge, Daniel, there's nothing on the market that will modify like an 8200 bare bulb easily in terms of like a snap-on sense or a magnetized sense or anything like that. You're going to have to use some good old-fashioned tape and gel, or you know, if you're using like a Bowens mount, a Godox S mount for Bowens adapters, you could use like a 7-inch reflector with barn doors on it and drop-in gels, right? But you're not going to be able to put a modifier over top of that. So, and then there were some guesses here. Seems better suited for the 8100 and 300. No, this is not for the 8100, 300. These are for small size flashes, just like the Magmods. Guys, think Magmods. You all know what Magmods are, right? Think Magmods. These are not going to work on the 8300s, the 8400s, or the 8600s, right? They're not going to work on the... I believe they'll work on the 8100, the smaller one. Let me just... Here, let's check so that we get it right for you. I have to take a look at the front of the Godox 100. Godox 8100. Here, you guys can look same side. Yeah, so there's the Godox 8100. The Rogue units that I showed you tonight, they will work on that because you can see it's got the metal ring, which is exactly like... It's exactly the same front. So this is the... Let's see if it'll refocus here. There we go. So it's the same front, right? So yeah, so it'll work on the 100, work on the 200, either with the rectangular head and the slip over adapter that you see, which here, we'll go ahead and we'll take that off. Also comes off a lot easier than the Magma one. So that's basically the setup there. That's the metal ring, which actually I think this pops out. Yeah. So it's a metal ring with kind of a retainer that keeps the whole unit nice and stiff, which I actually really like that. So it's not going to get floppy on you, right? But yeah, 300, 400, 600, that's a whole different methodology because the tube setup is very, very different, and the diameter of those units is very, very different. So these are definitely small, light modifiers, right? And again, hence why I'm interested in it, because of the travel aspect. When my current travel kit, when I'm traveling places like Austin and Precision Camera and that type of stuff, I have 4 Godox 8200s in the case with 4 Fresnel heads, the regular rectangular Fresnel heads, these, and I carry 2 bare bulbs. I don't even take 4 because I don't need 4. So so I have 4 strobes, 6 heads that I have to work with, you know, for teaching. Okay. Let's see here. Scrolling back, I thought there was one more. Maybe not. That's all the hellos. Okay, so let's go back to the end. What else? Let's see. Joe Doozle, what makes the Rogue products better than what Godox sells as a kit? Godox does also sell a gel kit. I have not gotten my hands on them yet, Joe. I don't know. That will be part of the research that I will do. If I was a betting man right out of the box, I'd say one of the things is probably actually price. But let's see here. I know that they have the round accessories. I don't think that... Oh, that was like not well done. Yeah, it will be part of my research, but I don't think the Godox round accessories, that there's any way to put them on a rectangular head. And you guys know that I don't use round heads, right? So certainly the one thing I won't do is I won't buy round heads just to be able to use modifiers. Like, that's not going to happen. So I only use round heads on my, you know, my bigger strobes, right? My bigger studio strobes. But as far as this kind of round head, I only own one of these. This is the round head that will attach to the Godox 8200. I own one of these just because of all of you people. Literally. It was, you know, I did this, almost 2 years ago now when this came out. I bought this to prove the point that everybody who thought this was like better light had no clue what they were talking about, because it's not better light. You tell how often I use it because I can't even get it to mount. It's like, okay, here we go. Wow, that sucker is not mounting. There it goes. Okay, so that's, yeah, I have one, and it was literally for teaching purposes. It's the only reason I own it. I've never used it beyond the demo that I did to be able to show, you know, why it's not something that you need or that you have any real benefit for. Okay. Let's see here. Hector, also the color profile and the editing software can affect the intensity of each color. Adobe Vivid. Oh yeah, but see, you're right, Hector. But most of us would never ever consider using Adobe Vivid. Yeah, that's a little much. For me, the whole point behind processing my images, I'm going to decide what goes in. So my color profiles, both in camera and in Photoshop, are very neutral, flat. You know, are there people that probably use Vivid? I have no doubt. But yeah, that's not my thing. I'm a control freak, and I'll own that. So you know, I want to be able to start with an image. It's almost kind of like color grading, but obviously not the way they do it in video and in movies. But yeah, I just the same as, and I'm not going to get into it tonight because we don't have enough time. But like, I will tell you this now, for those of you that like to grab the exposure in post-processing. So we're talking Lightroom, Camera Raw, we're talking Luminar Neo, we're talking Affinity, DxO Photo Hub. I don't care what it is. You know, if your like first go-to is like hit the exposure slider and hit the contrast slider, ooh, that's lazy. Do a little bit of research. Learn how they work. All right? The magic, the real magic, is in highlights and shadows and whites and blacks. And there are people that will even argue, screw that, work with curves. But I'm not going to lie, I don't have the patience for curves. But so at the end of the day, you got to find what works for you. But yeah, if you're a control freak, you're going to be a lot more detailed than wanting to go, you know, with those kind of profiles. Okay. Let's see here. And Nick, Joe, I know you don't do Lightroom. In Bridge, do you do keywords, or you just have a hierarchical folder structure? Bridge does keyword searches across folders, so that comes in handy. Yeah, Nick, I do keywords. I didn't early on, but I have since added keywords. And I'll tell you where I use the keywords the most. Actually, it's all the stuff that I do for education purposes, right? Because when I'm shooting people, whether it's a portrait, whether it's a modeling portfolio, even if it's a shoot that's a creative shoot, right? There's a person assigned to it. So my hierarchical folder structure system works great. If I'm photographing my grandkids, hierarchical folder structure works great. When I am photographing stuff for teaching, then the hierarchical structure doesn't work as well. I considered creating a separate structure, which would have been non-hierarchical, using exclusively keywords for all of that kind of work, and then realized like that would just drive me out of my mind. So, because I'd be switching back and forth thought processes. So what I did is I just started building keyword use into that. So at this point, anything that is not a person or my family, it gets heavily keyworded. And just so we're being clear, folks, if you're using keywords, the key to using keywords, and this is, you know, Lightroom, Bridge, any of the programs, the DAMs, the digital asset management tools. And by the way, this is the talk, so you get a piece of it free right here, right now, right, for next week. This is the talk that I'll be doing, so you should consider signing up. But if you're using keywords and you're just randomly assigning keywords, well, oh yeah, okay, it's an eagle, and oh yeah, it's a bald eagle, and I shot it at kind of when you go, damn, this is all stuff that I know Nick might do, right, because of where he lives. If that's just how you're doing your keywords, you're doing it really wrong. What makes it wrong? Because you could argue, but no, that makes sense to me. Here's the problem. As humans, we have a memory capacity, right? So as you just keep using these random keywords and building it out and building it out and building it out, eventually you forget what keywords you've used. And then you wind up actually using really, really similar keywords where you really only needed one of them, but you've got 2, even 3 different keywords that really kind of mean the same thing, right? So the way you do a keyword system, folks, here's the bad news. You open up a spreadsheet and you make a spreadsheet and you need a key for your keywords. And when you're keywording, you should have this spreadsheet open and you should be selecting from the appropriate categories. And you don't just give an image one keyword. Oh God, no. You'll never find a damn thing, right? So there's higher level categories, mid-level categories, low-level categories, and then the specific keywords that apply to a specific file. That's how you keyword. And in the world of information architecture, that is called a flat, non-hierarchical system. So that's a piece of the talk that we'll be doing next week. And with that, gang, I'm out of time. Shocker, I'm over time. But again, thank all of you. I appreciate you for coming out tonight. I appreciate your watching. I hope you found some value in the things that I shared tonight. Look forward to more information on these pieces that I showed you. Again, this wasn't a big commercial. In fact, I will, though, really, really quick. I forgot to do that. Let me drop the URL in for Rogue. That was my bad. I talked about it. I should at least share that with you guys. But yes, I'm going to try this stuff out. I will come back. I will report on all of it. I'm going to give you upsides, downsides, and we'll go through the specs in a whole lot more detail. And of course, I will make the comparisons to Godox so that I can share that information with you. But thank you. One last reminder, please, the thumbs up helps people find out about the show. Be greatly appreciated. And look, you know the drill. You don't get back the time that you waste. So I appreciate you being here, but please go pick up that camera and shoot something, because your best shot, it's your next shot. Adios, gang. Have a great week.